bone, and above the calcaneus, or heel bone, that talus is the portion where the deformity is kind of wound around. So we are unwinding the foot around that area, and we're gradually bringing the foot up, but we are not going to push it all the way up because the bone, the muscle in the back that's attached to the heel is too tight, and that cannot be fixed by just pushing on it. That was the innovation. Because before that, before Ponsetti, surgeons would get to this point and we would start to push. And as you pushed up, the foot would come up like this, but that heel would stay in its position and the foot then would have a little rocker bottom look to it.
So you just ended up bending the foot.
Correct.
Basically.
Bend it right through the midfoot, which is a big problem. So when he said, what I can do is correct all the elements, bring the foot to about neutral, all the way abducted or brought out to this position, corrected with maintaining the arch, and I took him to surgery and I just lengthened that muscle. Boom, the foot would pop right up back into the spot. It would heal up beautifully, and they did great. So he started publishing his information, his data on this, the years that followed. And, you know, like anything in medicine, people say, well, that's interesting, but we'll wait and see. And sure enough, he showed 30 and 40-year data. I mean, how beautiful these feet were. And so really it was a conversion. So in my time of training, clubfoot surgery, making a big incision along the back of the foot to correct that out, was one of the most common surgeries that pediatric orthopedic surgeons did. And now, we almost never have to do it. I probably do a full reconstruction of clubfoot twice a year. And yet we see lots of clubfoot because this technique works so beautifully.
I was reading about the spread of the Ponsetti method.
Mm-hmm.
NPR had a really good piece on it.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, the truth is, you know, like you say, you can go to the third world and look at club feet, and you can operate day and night on untreated club feet, and that can't make a dent in the population. But if you go there and teach, it doesn't have to be the surgeons there, but even orthopedic clerks, orderlies, whoever, you teach them this technique, what you can find is that you can almost eradicate it by just doing this. You don't even need an extensive operative correction. So it really is a technique that's changed the world when it comes to this. And while we still do have to see a lot of those bad little club feet that kind of sneak away and get to, come in, if you catch them early like this, the results are fantastic.
I cannot believe how much better his feet look after 2.5 weeks, I think it's been.
Yeah, he's been very nice, very responsive here, so those are going to be great.
Thank you, Calvin. This leather here.
Hi, Calvin. You're doing so good.
He is good.
Proud of you. You did not do this good last week.
Yeah.
Gengi wasn't here last week.
Yeah, there you go.
Maybe he just really didn't like the purple cast.
Yeah, so now that is a little variation in the technique. So
How come you prefer these casts?
I love it.
and
Okay,
Lewis
so
prefers
that's a good question.
plastic?
So I'll tell you that Dr. Lewis is more of a purist to the Ponsetti method because Ponsetti would not like these soft casts that I'm using. So of course, we are all products somewhat of our training, and so I'll just tell you that Ignacio Ponsetti came to me. I trained at Harvard, and he came out and gave us our kind of lecture on how we would do this, and sat in a room like this with my chairman, Jim Kasser, who used these soft roll casts. And Ponsetti was sitting there, and he was, me to you like this, and he was like, oh, you've got to use plaster. It's the only way to do this, the only way to get the rigid mold. And Dr. Kasser, who's a super guy, very politically astute, was like, oh, yes, Dr. Ponsetti, this is great, And then after he left, he looked over at me, he's like, we'll keep doing it the way we're doing it. And so part of it's just like, it's how you're trained. Now, why do I like this type of roll and why do I follow Dr. Kasser and the Boston method? Is because there are many benefits to the softer roll. First off, we find that the softer roll can be easier managed by parents, right? You can take it off, which is nice to save the saw, save the soaking off method they've done for a while.
I can give him a bath before all
The
of
bath,
this,
right,
lotion
clean up the
him
skin, which we
Yeah.
tend to think is good. Secondly, we find that because the soft roll, as you can feel, has a little give to it. There used to be one of the things that Ponsetti talks about is there's problems with you get soft tissue because those plaster casts are rigid. So if you can use the soft roll, it gives a little bit, so you almost never see sores, never see breakdown of skin, which allows us to continue to push on. So if you look at Ponsetti, even some of his disciples, like Dobbs, who's in St. Louis, he really starts using this as well because the idea is that you can push even harder with this, and that's how you get corrections a little faster. Because Ponsetti's usual method was 6 to 8 weeks. And so we're easily doing this in 3 or 4 weeks a lot of times because I can push a little more with a softer roll.
Okay.
And the kids tend to tolerate that better.
They feel a lot lighter too. It
Yeah.
seems like this bothers him a lot less than when he was getting the plaster done.
But I'd say, if you look at kind of all of the Boston disciples, Jim Casser and Lily Ponsetti, if you look at the whole group, it's probably not evenly split, but there's lots of people that use the soft roll. And we really have found that the success is just the same. And I tend to think a little superior. Only again, you're probably best being done with what the surgeon's most comfortable with, what they use the most. And so this is definitely the best way to manage this.